everyone, and welcome back to Vanguard for Freedom. So, there's a myth that's been pushed for a long time now that illegal immigrants are absolutely necessary for the functioning of our workforce. The narrative goes something like this: even though they're here illegally, they're taking jobs that Americans don't do. So it's a line often repeated by those who want to justify illegal immigration. But when you break it down, this argument just doesn't hold up. So whenever I looked at this argument, I thought, what better way to argue against this than a simple economics lesson, specifically the law of supply and demand? So in a free market economy, the price of labor, like any other commodity, is determined by, well, the supply and demand. If there's a high demand for workers in a particular industry, and there aren't enough workers available to meet that demand, the wages will naturally rise. If there are fewer workers available, employers have to offer more money to attract more people that they need. Now, this is the very foundation of how the labor market works, and it's the mechanism that allows workers to earn a fair wage. So let's consider this. What would happen if we enforced our immigration laws and ensured that only legal immigrants were allowed to enter the workforce? I think it's pretty simple. Wages would go up. Without the influx of illegal workers, employers would have to increase wages to attract legal workers. Now, there wouldn't be as much of a supply of cheap illegal labor, so the natural economic pressure would be for wages to rise in those industries that rely on low-wage work. So if we're truly concerned about making sure that everyone has access to work, we should stop arguing that illegal immigrants are necessary and focus on making sure that Americans are encouraged to fill these roles. Unfortunately, that's not really what we're seeing right now. The presence of illegal immigrants in the workforce actually creates a situation where wages are artificially suppressed. Employers are forced to keep these wages low because there's a large pool of illegal workers willing to take these lower paying jobs under the table, and Americans won't work these jobs. The problem is twofold. Most aren't willing to take such a low paying job, and when they can simply apply for government unemployment that's often higher than the wages in these jobs, why even bother? Now, let's talk about that second issue, the role that government incentives play in this equation. In recent years, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, we often saw that government benefits, like unemployment checks, were being paid out at levels that often exceeded what people could make by working low-paying jobs. In some cases, people were getting unemployment benefits that were far more than previous wages. Now, obviously, this makes it really hard to justify going back to work. I mean, who doesn't like sitting at home and making money versus going to work and making money, especially whenever that money is less than what you would have made at work? This obviously creates a huge disincentive for people to re-enter the workforce, and this gap was filled largely with illegal labor. Now, the system as it stands today isn't just allowing illegal immigrants to take jobs. It's actually incentivizing them now. When you've got a government handing out unemployment checks that exceed what you can make at a low-paying job, it only makes sense that many Americans would rather stay home and collect those checks. Now, there are some restrictions on that, but it's fairly easy to apply for a job and maintain that check. So basically, the government is funding these illegal jobs. Instead of encouraging people to seek out legal work, the system creates incentives that leaves both legal workers and taxpayers at a disadvantage. And the system isn't just hurting Americans, it's also hurting legal immigrants who follow the rules to go through the proper channels and enter the country, and they seek employment. They're now competing with a massive unregulated workforce that is allowed to exist in the shadows. This also drives down wages across the board. Legal immigrants should be able to compete for jobs on a level playing field, not one that's destroyed by illegal workers being paid off the books. Let's think about this from a different angle for a moment. If the government were to stop these unfair practices, stop paying out massive unemployment benefits, and stop incentivizing illegal immigration, what would happen? Well, we'd likely see the natural labor market kick back into gear. Wages would rise in industries that rely on low-wage workers, and Americans, who are currently sidelined, would have more of an incentive to work. The economy would adjust, and maybe even businesses would have to pay more in order to attract workers. But this is how it works in a healthy economy. But that's not the only issue we need to address. The fact is, people who enter the country illegally are, by definition, breaking the law. And once you allow that breach of law to happen, it creates an environment where other illegal activities can thrive. Criminals will exploit weak spots in the system to further their activities. And when you have millions of people living in the country illegally, it makes it far easier for things like human trafficking, drug trafficking, and even violent crime to go unchecked. We've seen it time and time again. Criminal organizations exploit illegal immigration to their advantage. Human traffickers often will take illegal immigrants and traffic them across the border. Drug cartels smuggle drugs across the borders using these same routes. And violent crimes, including gang violence, are linked to illegal immigration networks. There's no denying it. Illegal immigration and crime are closely tied. And while I'm not saying every person who enters this country has a previous criminal record, it's impossible to ignore the larger criminal networks that thrive in these conditions. The simple fact is whenever people break the law to enter the country, it emboldens others to break the law in other ways. And when the system turns a blind eye to these illegal activities, it emboldens them even further. It creates more opportunities for crime to flourish. It's not a matter of humanitarian crisis or compassion. It's simple. We have to stop the flow at the border. At this point, the argument we need illegal immigrants to fill certain jobs falls apart. We don't need illegal labor to sustain our economy. What we need is a system that encourages legal immigration, ensures that American workers are willing to work, and that the border is secure. When we eliminate the unfair incentives that currently exist, we'll see wages rise possibly, and legal workers will be more willing to take these jobs. The criminal underworld that thrives on illegal immigration will lose its power. This isn't about being against immigration. It's about being in favor of a system that works, a system that's rewarding legal immigration, that promotes economic fairness and enforces the rule of law. It's about ensuring America's labor market is for everyone, from the American worker to the legal immigrant to the business owner. So let's put an end to the myth that illegal immigration is necessary for our economy. It's not. What we need is to take back control of our borders, stop incentivizing illegal labor, and start addressing the real economic and criminal issues that come with allowing illegal immigration to run unchecked. At Vanguard for Freedom, we're all about promoting ideas that will make America stronger, safer, and more prosperous for everyone. If you like this video, share it with friends, leave a comment below, or consider subscribing, and let's keep fighting for a better future, one where the rule of law and fairness are upheld. Thanks.